Well, this is surreal to me in a way, but as the first wrestler interview that I'm going to have here on McGuire on Wrestling, I wanted to go back to someone I've known literally since one of our childhoods. Michael Richard Blais, God's gift to wrestling, MRB. He's known in Western Canada and really throughout North America. And well, where else have you been, man? You've been a lot of places.
Mostly in North America, in Western Canada, the States. I've done a little bit in Ontario. I did a tour in the UK, which is really cool. That's basically my areas. But
Yeah,
yeah.
but that's just it. So when you and I first met, you were training.
When we first met, it was probably the first time I ever went to a PWA show because
uh,
I was actually trained by TJ Wilson. And so I started going to like PWA shows and everything in 2004. I started like riding the roads with TJ and Ravenous Randy and Dan Myers and BVD and everything. And we just hit like every show we possibly could until somebody would finally book us when we were kids. But yeah, so TJ finally got us into like Stampede Wrestling in 2005 was when me and BVD really hit the road wrestling full time.
And for those that don't know who BVD is, if you want to hit your indie Google searches, Brandon Van Danielson, you guys tagged for a long time together.
Yeah, we went through the gambit together in pro wrestling. Like we literally started training together as kids. Like I said, like at BJ's gym 2003. TJ Wilson, Natty Neidhart, and Ravenous Randy, and then like Harry Smith and Apocalypse, who went on to be Rick Victor. They trained us literally from the time we were kids. And then once we were actually doing the wrestling thing full time on shows starting in 2005 there, like I said, we've tagged, we feuded, we did an hour-long Iron Man match together. We've gone from Alberta to St. Louis to train with Harley Race together. We've done like literally everything together. BVD is like my legit wrestling brother, as close as you can get, other than the fact that now my real life brother wrestles too. So,
And who's he for those that don't know?
for those that don't know, my real life brother, who I actually trained him. He's one of my very first like full on students. Is Stephen Crow, the Rhinestone Cowboy.
You can see him, especially in Alberta. Crazy gimmick. Tons of fun to watch him, too. So your career goes on. I move away from Alberta, but I'm seeing you and BVD especially grow and become this huge thing. I mistakenly was talking to Meltzer. I thought that you had trained with Lance, but you did work with Lance Storm when Lance was working in PWA. So talk about having him there with you and what you learned from Lance in that time.
Yeah, so Lance Storm. So the thing is like I wouldn't say I didn't fully train with him. So,
No.
but I wouldn't say you're mistaken either because he did like help me a lot in that time frame. And it's one of those things where I learned it more in hindsight than I did in the moment because I was like Lance booked PWA from 2009 to 2013. So in that time frame, I'm like a 19 to 23-year-old kid who's just like I've got a bit of a chip on my shoulder too, completely admittedly. So a lot of the stuff Lance would say, I'd almost be like, so just like full disclosure, Lance didn't like me at first, I don't think. From what I like heard, he originally would like tell certain people at his like school and stuff that he was training, like, oh, go to the local shows and watch this kid to see what not to be as a pro wrestler.
Wow.
But to Lance's credit, once he was booking for PWA and like so the chip I had on my shoulder, I wanted to like not so much prove that I was better, but I wanted to prove him wrong in a way,
Yeah.
I guess. And the way TJ told me to do that was like literally show him that you can do everything that he wants you to do. Because I would go to TJ and ask for advice. So then I got to the point where if Lance asked me to do a 5 minute match where I got no offense in, I would do it and I would sell my ass off and I would do the best I could. And then I would go pick his brain afterwards and ask questions. And then if he asked me to do a 10 minute match a certain way, I'd do it exactly like that and pick his brain and ask questions why. And then I would sit with him during the shows and ask him like, why did you book this way? Why do you have guys doing this? Why this? And over time, me and him actually built like a pretty good relationship where by the time like 2012 comes around, so it takes about 2 years there, he's actually like putting me in the top storyline and he's booking me to win the heavyweight title. And he's got me as like a big star in the company. And he started actually telling his students at that time frame to come to shows and watch me to see what to be as a wrestler. And he would start telling people like the reason me and his student, Chris Knight, wrestle all the names that come into Alberta is because we're the like guys that are closest to actually getting signed and being named ourselves. And what I always tell people is in hindsight, after all that, I realized Lance was right about so much stuff.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
he really like taught me, he kind of helped me refine everything and figure out like storytelling, the whole, I don't like using the term less is more, but do more with less.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do everything you want to do, but make it all mean the most it can possibly be. He helped a lot with things like that. And yeah.
So it's funny because I find that wrestlers, radio people, and comedians all share a lot of the same tendencies when it comes to the way we think of what we do. And what you're saying, less is more. In comedy, it's called killing your darlings, where that's where you have a really long joke that you think is really funny the whole way through, and you love this thing, but then you realize the funny part is only a very small part of it. So you got to kill your darlings. You got to get rid of all that other stuff and make that little bit really work. Same in radio. Nobody wants to hear somebody prattle on like I'm doing right now, but they want to get to the meat of the matter. So I think that's a great lesson. And I think you also kind of enhance and enforce the theory that if a coach gives you a play, even if you're a great goal scorer and you can hit anywhere in the net, for example, but we need you on defense, you play defense. And then all of a sudden, once you're trusted to play defense, if they want to move you forward, they'll move you forward. And that, I think, is what happened to you in this situation as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. That's another thing that like doing that with Lance really helped me with is I think I like to think that I was always very coachable, but I was very like I looked at TJ and like my training as like the be all end all. Lance showed me in being in that situation that being coachable is actually being open to everything. Like, and like you said, if the coach calls a play and like at the time Lance was the coach, you go with that play. And when they see that you're reliable, you're a good person, you're dependable, et cetera, that's when they take the notice. And then all of a sudden your plays get a little more important.
Exactly. So I want to go from meeting young Chucky Blais. I know that's a name we normally don't mention, but we have to go there, man. Because
I just posted a new old promo picture on Twitter, though, because there's that chain going on. So everybody knows.
I'm going to throw it up on the video here right now. So anyway, Chucky Blais, and I bring that name up because now you and I work together in Dungeon Wrestling, which is being run by Dallas Hart, a guy named Steve Lambros, and of course this other guy, Bret the Hitman Hart, you know, who's just happens to be, right, but who just happens to be booking the shows. But I have this book here from our friend Vance Nevada, and Dungeon brought back the British mid-heavyweight championship, which in the record books here, you were one of the last to hold said championship. And so
not only last to hold, but one of the last. I'm the youngest ever.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. I get it, man. When we start getting older, we got to hold on to the things that we're the youngest ever for. But now things are kind of coming full circle for you in a way. Back in Calgary, that title's around you. But now you're also a guy that is one of those trusted hands in the start of a really new company. I mean, we're all 3 shows in really with this place, minus the Romero debut. But when you find yourself being one of the chosen ones to basically help develop this territory from the grassroots, and you also have your own up in Edmonton, I mean, how do you handle that sort of responsibility? Does it ever bother you? Do you ever get nervous about like, man, I realize all the pressure's on me here?
Honestly, no, for some reason. And I think it's just because I'm so obsessed with wrestling and like I love wrestling so much that I don't get nervous about it. I just get super excited. And like it's it means a lot to me that I've managed to get to this point and not just like my career, but my life in general, that people trust me that way. And the fact that it's weird to like talk about sometimes because I still, in a way, see myself, and I think a lot of people see me as like that kid. But like now I'm this adult who has trained a bunch of people, and some people call me their mentor and everything. And like you said, people are trusting me to actually like build the new age of everything here and like really help with that. And it's just like it doesn't give me nerves so much as it just makes me feel like really good and like everything was kind of like worth it, if that makes sense.
Well, I want to talk about a specific endorsement of you that I heard. This was a few years ago, and I had the opportunity to hang out with a young man who had left WWE and went on to do his own thing. And in an interview, a conversation I had with him, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, named you as one of his favorite opponents to work on the indies. He had just worked you prior.
Damn.
What's that?
Oh, damn. It's crazy.
You know that?
Honestly, I knew Cody really liked me. I didn't know he like actually said that publicly.
I'm going to find that interview cool. And I'll send you the clip because I think it was after the show. He had wrestled another friend of ours in Michael Allen, Richard Clark in Saskatoon. Mm-hmm. And this was during his whole indie run. But I will find you that clip because he names you specifically God's gift.
We really got it going on here, man. God's gift is here. This son of a gun who's we're pretending he's off camera.
We should bring him in. Hey, yeah. Clark, come on over. We're talking about you, if you don't mind.
We were saying nice
he was talking about me.
We were just saying he's really good.
Yeah,
very good. Michael Blais is really good. In.
I'm glad that put a smile on your face. I'm glad to be the one to tell you that because that actually that's pretty cool. So you're getting people like that who are saying things about you, who are believing in you, and now you find yourself in this leadership role. You have your own school. Explain the Clandestine Wrestling Society for those that don't know, which is probably going to be a lot of people listening to this because we're going everywhere, not just Alberta here.
Okay, so the too long didn't read version of it is the Clandestine Wrestling Society actually started as a one-off show that I wanted to do in 2019. And it was literally just all my friends and the people that I had like helped train a little bit at the time. In 2019, I got lucky enough that a couple clips of me went viral and they actually helped me get bookings in other places. And then in my mind, I went, oh, online and streaming is the way to go. And like, that's what's going to help all of my friends and everything. And all these people who deserve to go places, just like I do, they deserve it too. It's going to help them get seen. So I just wanted to do this one-off show that originally wasn't even supposed to have fans at it. But then it like blew up into a whole other thing. And then we had to start letting fans come and everything. And I just wanted to stream it online and do the coolest stuff possible, basically do highlight reels for everybody live and try to get people seen outside of Alberta. Mm-hmm. So that's like the genesis of the Clandestine Wrestling Society. And the idea was like, it's supposed to be a secret show. So that's why it's clandestine. Fast forward a few years and all of a sudden I have people that think it's such a cool concept that they're coming to me like Cobra Kai from WrestleCore is coming to me and he's like, hey, I really like that Clandestine Society thing. Would you be willing to come out here and do it as an actual group? And it's like, of course, like, sure. So it kept evolving. And then it eventually got to a point where I was looking into a way to have my own training school because I'd helped out since like over the years, probably since about 2015, I've helped out at like different training schools throughout the time and trained a lot of people helping there, but I never had like my own place. And so I finally found this warehouse and everything and set up my own place. Like me and all my friends set it up. And when I was sitting there thinking of a name and everything, it just became like obvious and almost a necessity that I would call it the clandestine wrestling society, and just build off everything that had already been naturally evolving since 2019. So that's basically the gist of it. Like, it's just me and my friends and this thing that I came up with for all of us.
Well, you know what I love most about it is that it's not the weirdest wrestling name for a promotion out there. So that's a good
fair.
thing. At
That's
least
fair.
you have the word wrestling in it so people know what it is.
It's true. It's true.
So, okay, we're coming up to, this is year 20 now of
Yep.
Michael Richard Blais.
May 13th to the day will be the 20th year since I stepped into a wrestling ring.
It's a Saturday. And
Yep.
speaking of live streaming, you're going to be doing something I think is incredible. For all the time that I spent in Edmonton during my broadcast career, there are few causes probably as revered and as necessary as far as for that community and really for a large part of the world, because there's people that come from all over the world to the Stollery Children's Hospital, which is one of the worldwide leaders in pediatric care, obviously. You've decided for your 20th anniversary to engage in an 8-hour gauntlet match, the Infinity Gauntlet. It'll be streaming live, and people can actually donate in advance. Now, you set a goal of $5,000. We're not there yet at the time of recording. So if you're watching this, if you're a wrestling fan, if you like what you've heard about Michael Richard Blais so far, please head to clandestinewrestlingsociety.com/infinity. There's also going to be a link in the descriptions for this week's podcast and this video link if you're watching on YouTube. But please consider clicking that link. Even $20 will make a big difference in that, I know. But what made you decide to say, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to tie it into raising money for the local children's hospital. I mean, a lot of guys will just be happy to go out, do a speech, tip the hat, and not do an 8-hour wrestling match.
Honestly, I've always had like the idea in my head to do something really, I guess, crazy like this is the easiest way to put it. I've always wanted to just do something really special with wrestling. And I feel like I've done a lot of things, but I always had this idea of like, what could really like be crazy to people and what could people relate with? And in my head, everybody in life at some point has worked a full 8-hour workday. And they know what it's like to get tired working their 8-hour workday. Sometimes even just sitting at a desk, you get tired. Standing at a retail job, you get tired. And so it's like everybody can relate to that. So when I say I'm doing an 8-hour, like a full workday of a pro wrestling match, people go like, in my head, people would go, oh, that's wild. And I guess the easiest way to put it is I just really love wrestling. And like, what better way is there to show it than like literally just wrestle for as long as I think is humanly possible for me.
Okay.
For my 20th year. Like, if I want to celebrate that, like, what's a better way to show how much I actually truly love this? And whenever I had this idea, so even though we're doing it for my 20th year and this all just happened to work out now, I've had this idea for years and years. I literally thought of this 8-hour match when I was 20. It was the first time I ever thought of it in my head. It just never materialized. The one thing that was always in my head, no matter what, was it had to be for charity. It had to be for some sort of charity, just because to me, legacy is like a person, and everything is like what you do for others. And I don't want this to be just like, oh, this guy wrestled for 8 hours and oh, like all these people wrestled with him for 8 hours and like, that's cool, they did this. I want it to matter. And once I started, especially now, once I started hearing some stuff, like, they're not my stories to tell. Every time I talk about this, I say they're not my stories to tell, but I have friends and family and people that have, like I said, had children that have had to go through the Stollery for various reasons. And so it was actually my girlfriend that first brought up like the idea of the Stollery. And then I thought about it and I thought of all those people. And then I went back into my own mind and everything. And I always tell this story about how in school I grew up as the fat kid. and I was bullied really hardcore. And wrestling was sort of the thing that in a way saved me because it was an entirely different community that they didn't care. Like TJ, Natty, Randy, the entire wrestling community took me in as just like their kid that they loved and they wanted to see grow. And they made me go from that unathletic, like unactive kid to a fairly like I like to think now an athletic, pretty good shape adult. And they like built me up, they supported me, they brought my confidence out, everything. And so to me, wrestling's my support system. So and it has been since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So the best way I can use it is to support children, and the Stollery Children's Hospital just seemed like the best way to do that.
It's funny you mention that because I remember when you first started, I didn't see this fat kid. I saw this skinny small kid who was basically flying around and jumping off crazy things and doing all those things that Lance Storm probably said, "Hey, go watch this kid and don't do what he does." And then seeing what you've become as a wrestler, you've got a little more size on you these days, but it's a healthy size. You're obviously able to move and function, and you're able to work different styles and things. It's probably a fair summation to say that wrestling probably saved your life in a lot of ways.
Yeah, like that's kind of why like I started saying that with this thing because when I really thought about it, it's like kind of true because I don't think I don't think I would have ever gotten the confidence to get through just adulthood, honestly, without like wrestling. I don't think I would have ever like come out of my shell and gotten past like the getting bullied in school and everything without wrestling. I certainly like I'm obsessed with working out now. Like I'm literally doing this with my squat rack in my house behind me. I'm obsessed with that now, but that's all through wrestling. Like just the fact that I became interested in health is through wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in a lot of ways it definitely like physically and more importantly than anything, probably mentally and emotionally really did like help save me in a way. That's why I'm the savior now.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about the character, and we might have to save that for next time because I do want to get into the logistics of this 8-hour match now. I'm sure it's questions you've already been asked a few times, but there's probably people listening going thinking 8-hour match, and it wasn't until you actually compared it to an 8-hour workday that it dawned on me. First of all, how many opponents are you going to have right now? Do we know?
So currently, I believe we have 13 or 14 set.
Wow.
Is what I have right now. And the idea is just going to be to like, they're going to be a revolving gauntlet. So, yeah. So like if I win them, say, I believe I'm going to start with Stephen Crow just because I think it's cool to start this thing with my brother.
Yeah.
So say I lose that match, I'm staying in the ring.
Yeah.
The next person's coming out.
Okay.
Say I win that second match, I'm staying in the ring. The next person's coming out. So it's just going to keep revolving like that. That
brings up the next question, though.
Okay.
What are you going to do when you got to pee?
That's the one rule that I put into place that I've gone like everywhere. And it's actually because my friend, the promoter of WrestleCore in BC, he brought this up to me, Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
He said when I first brought this up to anybody, he was all like, dude, what are you going to do? How are you going to like pee? Like at some point you're going to have to go to the bathroom. So the one rule is that every 4 matches, there's going to be a 5-minute intermission.
Yeah.
It might not be exactly 5 minutes. It might be like 4 or 3. I don't want it to be any longer than 5 minutes because then I think I'm cheating in my own weird head. But yeah, every 4 matches, there will be a 5-minute intermission. So that's why the stream itself is going to go from noon until 9 p.m. So it sounds like it's actually longer than 8 hours, but it's to account for those like 5-minute intermissions and for people's little short entrances. Because one other thing that I really wanted to make a big deal is I want the clock to pause for people's entrances and for those intermissions. So like the actual ring time will be 8 hours.
Wow. The other question, I guess, and this is coming from the endurance athlete perspective, when I started running and doing like long runs, I was given things like, the little nutrition packs, the gels and things like that. What are you going to do for keeping your energy and your electrolytes up? I mean, is it going to be something similar to that? Do you have foods lined up? What are you going to do? And also, how do you eat and then go wrestle immediately?
So basically, like what you just said is like I basically started doing a lot of research into marathon running and stuff like that, and so I'm gonna have like a stockpile of like those gel packs. I'm really into supplements when it comes to like just working out in general,
Yeah.
like EAAs, electrolytes, stuff like that. So I have a lot of that stuff on hand. Some carb powder, because I think I'm gonna need a lot of simple sugar carbs to get through it. And then I'll have a little bit of like regular food on the side if I just want to chew like half a bagel or something during one of those intermissions.
Yeah.
Luckily, I'm fairly good with a lot of that stuff, with like the powders and everything, with my digestion. So I think I'll be okay when it comes to wrestling the match. If not, hopefully they don't pick up any of the the noises that could come from the tummy on the audio or anything.
As long as it's just the noises and your opponents aren't noticing odors, then you should be okay.
Yeah, that's the hope, is that there's just no odors and very little noise picked up on the live stream.
I don't mean to be I don't mean to take it to a gross place or anything, but these are all things that the first thing that I thought of was like, how's he gonna eat? How's he gonna poop? Like, what's the deal here? So
yeah, like it sounds like it's like a funny thing and like a weird, gross joke to make, but it's like legitimately stuff that you have to think of once you decide to do something like this. So.
I think I'm laughing because I'm legitimately a little worried about you. So, I try and deflect with humor here. But again, Michael Richard Blais, this is phenomenal. May 13th from noon until 9, which is 2 until 11 p.m. Eastern time. For anybody that wants to join in on this, clandestinewrestlingsociety.com/infinity. And if people want to make a donation, please do. I'm going to be sending mine in as soon as we finish our talk here, pal, because I mean this personally and professionally. I have great respect and admiration for you. Knowing some of the wrestlers that you've helped train, seeing people that have credited you for helping them in their career. I can think of someone who Brett mentioned in a recent interview, in Zoe Sager, who is, I only started watching her last year, and she's phenomenal, and you had a hand in that. So, this is just one of many, many people out there who, again, Michael Richard Blais, look him up, look up the history, look up the future, because 20 years, we're going to keep going after this, right?
Oh yeah, I don't plan to slow down anytime soon. I'm too obsessed. And I've got like, in my mind right now, I've still got so much time. Like, it sounds crazy that it's 20 years, but I'm still only 33. So I'm pretty young in this wrestling business still. So I've still got a lot of time for myself, but also I just feel like I've got like an obligation to my own goals to help as many people as I can too. So I've got a lot of time left.
Dude, so proud of you. Again, Infinity Gauntlet, May the 13th. Check your local time conversion for it. 2 p.m. Eastern is when it starts. And clandestinewrestlingsociety.com/infinity. If you're one of the people from the UK that are listening, if you're from the US, your donation is a discount because the Canadian dollar doesn't compete against your currency. So please give as much as you can and support this guy out. I'm telling you, you couldn't support a better guy or a better cause than the Stollery Children's Hospital Foundation. Mr. Blais, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you doing this and taking the time in your day. I know it was like a bit of an ordeal for us to schedule between our real lives and stuff, but I really appreciate it. And yeah, it means a lot. And hell yeah.
Well, it means a lot to me that you're also my first wrestling guest on the new show here. So again, thank you very much. And I know Meltzer's already talking about it as well. So people know and people are finding out. So you're doing a great thing. We didn't even talk about the Spanish Fly footage. We'll have to do that next time you're on, okay?
Sure. Follow-up interview for the Savior and Spanish Fly.
I want and find out if you pooped yourself during the match. I got to know. So.
Yeah, if I pooped myself during the match, yeah. Yeah.
Michael Richard Blais, thanks, pal.
Thank you.